Hello and welcome back to another episode of Releasing Your Inner Dragon with Drake and Marie. Today, we are going to discuss the topic of tension. What kind of tension you can use in a scene, what kind of tension you can use in a book overall, the kind of how you mix that tension, the problem with just using one kind of tension or the other, and how you can make it feel too much. When is too much tension there? But before we get into that, as always, I am one of your hosts, Marie Mullaney. I run a YouTube channel all about fantasy world building, and I write epic fantasy. And with me is my co-host, Drake.
I'm Drake. I'm an award-winning novelist, teach writing all over the world, and I'm just excited to be here.
Okay. So before we start with the topic, please do remember to hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, give us stars, leave a review, let us know what your feeling is about the podcast. All of this helps get the word out about the podcast, and more viewers keeps us convinced that we should keep making these podcasts. So please do go ahead and help us beat the algorithm and get the word out about this podcast.
And as has been the case recently, today's episode is brought to you by the Writers Room. You can find it at writersroom.us. And it is a private subscription platform for writers who are serious about getting writing. It's something I launched a couple months ago. It's been doing fantastic. You can get dedicated writing time, critique sessions. You get work with me. Marie's going to be in there in a month or two as soon as her schedule clears up. There's only one way to grow as a writer, and that is to write, critique, and be critiqued, and then rinse, wash, repeat. That's it. And that's what you get with the Writers Room every single week. You can check it out at writersroom.us. However, because you're a listener and because I'm in the beginning stages of launching this, I can offer you a 50% off for the first 3 months if you just hit me up on anything. Either send me an email, you can send it here at releasingyourinnerdragon at gmail.com, or you can hit me up on any of my socials or on my websites. Links are all down below. And just say, hey, look, you'd really like to join the Writers Room and take advantage of that 3 months at 50% off. And I will send you that, and we'll see you in the Writers Room.
Let's talk about tension. So I brought this topic up because I have recently been critiquing a whole lot of chapters and so on that have either had one kind of tension or the other. They've either had the tension exists between the characters. All right. So the characters are in conflict, and that is providing the tension in the scene. Or they have been leaning into plot tension. There is a plot thing going on, an overall story thing, and the reader needs to find out what is happening. Right. So the problem is that if you lean too far to one side or too far to the other side, the character tension can fall completely flat if the reader doesn't buy the tension. So either the reader doesn't understand where the tension is coming from, or the reader doesn't feel like the tension is being expressed, or the reader just doesn't like one of the characters enough to feel any tension. Because that's the other thing, right? Readers, especially in multi-POV books. So if there's a character you don't like, and they're in a tense situation with another character that they have a relationship with, you as the reader might just feel nothing, because you're not invested in this character. You want to get to the other characters. So if you're not getting any plot and you're just getting character, the temptation is there for the reader to skip. And then plot tension. The problem is with plot tension is if all of your tension is focused solely on the plot, then once the readers figured out where the plot's going, and they will, because most readers are fairly smart and they'll eventually see where this is headed, they'll lose interest and put the book down. Because all of your tension was focused on the whodunit. And once they figured out whodunit, they're done.
Well, it does. I think it adds another element too of negativity, which is it's usually longer in the future.
Yeah.
So the tension isn't like, hey, this guy's punching this guy in the face in this scene. And if, this guy loses, if guy A loses this fight, then he loses everything. Like that's this immediate high ramping of tension between the conflict between these two characters, as opposed to there's a murderer in the house. It's one of us. There are 20 of us. And I now have to figure out which of you 19 is the actual murderer. And so we're going to go through night after night as another person dies. And obviously they weren't the murderer. Like that is a much more drawn out form of tension that, is going to take a little while.
And of course, you could say, yes, sure, but I could use that plot tension and use it in every chapter and just speed it along. Yes, absolutely. But the problem with those stories is they go at such a pace that the reader feels too fast and left behind. At least I do. Like,
also, I mean, if you never connect the readers to the characters, then it's the same thing that we've talked about many a time of Jurassic Park versus Transformers. Jurassic Park, you actually care about the characters and you actually care that they succeed and survive or care that they die. And in Transformers, you honestly don't care either way. They could live, yay. They could die, who cares? Like if the Shia LaBeouf character died in Transformers, you would not care. It wouldn't change the movie for you in any way, shape, or form. And that isn't the case with Jurassic Park. And they're the same movie. They're big things killing humans. So that's the other thing. And that's why you have to have this balance of both. I mean, individual character tension and understanding. The funny thing is last night at group, and I know always talk about this, but last night at the group, and again, you should join the writers' room if you want to be a part of last night's group. We actually had examples of both of those. So it's kind of funny that when I sat down today and you were like, this is what I want to talk about, I was like, wow, like literally two of the readers did that exact thing. So one of them, it was supposed to be a character-driven scene, but the tension between them, as you said, just wasn't believable. So it's one character basically dominating and killing another character. And yes, the one character that is doing the killing is the hero, and the other character is this piece of garbage. We've already set up that, like he beat a street urchin for no reason, and like he's a bad person. But there's no, he was a cardboard, the guy that's being killed is this cardboard character. She kicks him in the face and he just then says something, this long eloquent line, as if they were just having tea. I kept saying that. It was like, is he just at a tea party? Because she's like, you betrayed my people, and she kicks him in the face, and he's like, well, it was really their fault because they chose this side of the fight, and what could I do? Like, you just got kicked in the face. Like, he literally spits a tooth out. He got kicked so hard, and then he's just like, yeah, but you know what? It wasn't really my fault. It was like, he's not concerned. He's not like, and so I'm like, so you're leaning on this character moment, but one of your characters isn't real. And so there is no, just like you said, there's no tension there because he's not trying to beg for his life. He's not trying to figure out a way to beat her. He's not trying to figure out a way to escape. He's literally just sitting there waiting to die. And so one of the things I challenged the writer was, I said, look, next week, I want you to come back with this exact same scene, but I want it written from his perspective. Write the whole scene from his perspective and have it end with him dying. I think that will be a great exercise for the writer to start understanding that every character in your scene has motivation. And then the other one was this guy escaping from this cave of monsters. And so the whole thing was about the scariness of the tunnels and the monsters and the growling and all this stuff, because it's pitch black dark. And so you didn't get a lot of visuals, and he left the reader kind of off balance and all this. But the guy, other than being disoriented and other than being, the main character, other than being just like stumbling through the darkness, he never had any, there was no character tension between him and the monsters. The monsters never caught up to him. He was never really like, there was like, oh, he could hear the growling, so he knew they were this far away. But then it didn't say like, crap, they're getting closer, I gotta hurry. Like there was no, it was just, it was all just, he has, so the plot is in that scene, the driving force of it is, I've got to get out of the case. but there's no character tension between him and the monsters. It was just between him and getting out.
And
so both left me flat.
Yeah. And I want to talk briefly about Magic Fall, which was the book we wrote together that we're plotting book 2 of. And I want to talk about chapter 9. Well, actually, I want to talk about Leiron's whole arc in the first act, but also about chapter 9 with Buri's arc. So all of those chapters, when we were plotting them, had a lot of information. They had a lot of things that had to happen for reasons of plot, right? But they had no tension. Like, yes, of course, they had, if the reader is invested in the plot, they might be invested in what Leiron is finding out, if, and so on. Like, all of that might be there, but there was no tension because the character element was missing.
And we're talking about during the plotting in the beginning.
Yeah. Obviously, the final book had plenty of tension because right. We fixed it in the writing. But chapter 9 specifically is where I want to start, because it was a scene we knew had to happen. Yeah, Buri has to arrive at the elevators that are taking her from the floating city down to the planet. She has to arrive there. She has to get on the elevator, and Leiron has to see her leaving. Those are the things that have to happen. They are the plot elements of this book. It is the culmination of Act 1, is that moment of actually leaving the flying city and going down to the planet. Cool. The problem was, at that point, Buri has this thing that's been driving her, which is, will she get a mask, right? So her worry has been alleviated. It's now all just facing down. So then we were like, okay, so her fleet, her cat, has snuck into and is now insisting on going with her, and she has no way of taking him back. Okay, so that provides some tension. But the problem is that is all internal tension. Unless somebody discovers the cat, there is no external tension. But if somebody discovers the cat can't go with, and the cat has to go with for plot reasons. So you've still got to create the tension of somebody almost discovering the cat. And then so we made up a character that is, it's a temporary character, but it's a character who has a reason to dislike Buri from events earlier in the book that the reader knows about, that immediately adds the dislike tension. And then we added to that the cat meowing and and then of course all the events of like this culmination of going down to the planet.
Well, actually, I want to add something to that, because it actually, that tension really starts in chapter 1 when we fall in love with the relationship between Buri and Teacup. Yes. Like, without that relationship, if it was just an animal, then that's one thing. But we did more with Teacup. We gave it a personality. It has almost sentient qualities to it, even though it really isn't. And those are all vitally important, because then you're raising the stakes, you're raising the connection, you're making the reader concerned for this animal as much as Buri is.
Yes, exactly. And then in chapter 1, we in fact introduced the thing that, the person that dislikes her for in this chapter 9 moment. So you build up this whole, so you've got to layer in the different types of tension in order to create an overall tense scene. It is not enough to just have the plot events. And I feel like this is a trap that heavy plotters fall into sometimes. They feel like the tension that they put in their scenes because of the plot line, will be enough to carry the reader. I promise you it won't. Now, that being said, it is not enough to just depend on characters either, which is sometimes what pantsers do, right? You've got all of this relationship between these characters, and all you do is you have the relationship blow up.
And We
Yeah.
don't, there's no end game. There's no
Yes.
actual
Yeah.
story going on.
And the
Yeah.
problem the problem with that is it's too much character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not enough
Plot.
of anything else. Well, I want to add a couple things to what you're saying, because what you're saying is awesome. Um, one of the things, and this is one of my Drakeisms is you don't realize that, but when you're writing, you're actually writing two novels at the exact same time. And you think you're only writing one, but you really are writing two. You're writing one on paper, but you're also writing one in your head. I call it the head book. And the reason why it's so vital to get other people to read your stuff is because that's the only way you know what's in your head book that's not on paper, which is why one of my rules in my writers group is you're not allowed to explain. Because if somebody says, look, you totally lost me with this. I have no idea why this character's doing this. And you go, well, okay, so why she's doing it is because of XYZ. And I'm like, no, you don't explain. You write down, oh crap, in my head book is her motivation XYZ, and it's not in the paper book. Like, you're done. You don't need to. We're not here to enjoy your story. We're here to show you the weaknesses of it. So there's that. But here's the other thing that so many people do, both pantsers and plotters. And I'm gonna pick on Sanderson. I don't usually pick on Brandon Sanderson, but in I think it's Alloy of Law, it opens up with basically a gunfight. And he's pinned down and there's action and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden this chick shows up that's part of his team. And you didn't really know in the beginning, but here she is, and they're kind of pinned down by this wall. And they're just, even though it's a guy and a girl, they're kind of just two dudes in a shootout. There's really nothing, like there's nothing there.
Sanderson can't write romance to save his life ever.
Well, I mean, I think he does better later, but this is in the opening chapter. So he didn't take the time to do this. So what he did was, when she leaves, when they come up with their plan to kind of get out of this, and she runs, to go do her thing, the guy goes, man, I really love her. She's the best woman in the entire world. And then that's it. And then he does his thing and he's fighting, and he finally tracks down the bad guy. And when he finally tracks down the bad guy's standing there, and the girl is on her knees with his gun against her temple. But the only thing you got was him telling you that he loved her. There was no anything between the two characters. And maybe he was thinking like, well, it's a gunfight. You're not going to be all lovey-dovey and all, but you got to do something. You've got to convince me of that love, not just tell me of that love. And so then that becomes this pivotal moment that changes the character forever. But it really doesn't to me, because even though the girl dies in that moment and he's butthurt for the rest of the book, like, oh, I never cared about their relationship, because the only part of the relationship I got was as she was walking away, he told me he loves her. Like, that's it. There's no showing of it. There's no building of it. There's no connection between the two. And so I don't care. This is not a pivotal moment for me. And that's the writer going, exactly what you were saying, the plotter writer going, no. This was his love for a long time. I told you that. So therefore, that's why it changed his life. And it's like, yeah, no, like telling me something doesn't make me feel it. And that's the point of writing, is you have to make the reader feel it. And so the reason why this is pertinent to what you were talking about Magic Fall is it's the same thing with Teacup. If we hadn't have done what we did with Teacup and connected the two of them in an actual loving relationship, that the reader then goes, oh, I love this flying cat. I got to take care of this flying cat. Please don't let this flying cat get caught. Bad things will happen. Like, without that connection, then the tension that we get to in chapter 9 just doesn't work. Yeah. No one cares. You care because in your head, just like in Sanderson's head, I'm sure, no, he really does love her more than anything else. Great. In your book head or head book, that's the way it is. But in the paper book, it ain't there. And so tension is not just tension that you're developing in the moment of the scene. Tension is something that you have to understand comes from the connection that the reader has with the situation, the character, the event, the goal, the motivation. Everything derives from how much the reader cares about those things. All tension comes from that. And if you don't have that, you don't have tension.
And now I just want to talk about motivation and the character's motivation. So I'm critiquing this one kind of long-running story. And one of the main characters, it's a romance story, and I appreciate that romance is not my genre, and I get that they are it's a very different genre. Like all of those things are true. But at the same time, this main character, who is one of the two POV characters, because there's a guy and a girl POV character, has no motivation. None. Like, she is good at what she does at her job. She has friends. She has a sickness. But I'm not even sure she wants to get well from the sickness, or that she can get well from the sickness. Like, she has nothing that she wants. And so I have found it impossible to connect with that character. Because I'm like, even if it's something that I don't understand, like I don't get how the person can want what they want, at least I understand a motivation. But this character wants nothing, except apparently to be in a romance novel so that she can get with a male lead. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And that can happen in so many different ways. I don't think that she'd be mad if I read this, because it wasn't a part of any story. It was just a little thing that she wrote to bring to, because she had some questions. And her big question was, how do you organically thread in emotions and showing and all of this other stuff? So basically, she just brought one paragraph. And unfortunately, I didn't save the original paragraph. I kind of wrote over top of it. But basically, it went like this. Jane led the way down a crowded street toward a side tunnel to the alley. Her younger brother, Bryn, trailed along behind her as they swerved through the throng of late night shoppers and cacophony of merchants vying for attention. The stench of sweat and city grime tainted the sweet, mouth-watering smell of fresh baked bread. Colorful fabrics, bags, and leathers waved from awnings, while bins of spices, flowers, and dried fish blocked their path. So, and she's like, I just don't understand this. This is, I feel like I'm showing here, but I know that I'm not, and I just don't understand how to do it. And so I'm like, okay, so first of all, and you're not going to do this instantly. It takes time to learn this stuff. But I was like, first of all, there's nothing personal to her. And I went through and I said, we have nothing but visuals, except for the one line that says the stench of sweat and city grime tainted the sweet, mouth-watering smell of fresh baked bread. That's the only non-visual sense that's in there. But I was like, what is their motivation here? What are they trying to accomplish? And she was like, well, they're on their way to a restaurant to try and get a job, hoping to make some money because, whatever. Now, I don't know what she was trying to do with the story or anything like that. So I just took it over from there. And I was like, well, there you go. Like, none of that is in here. So there's two things. You want to thread in the motivation, but you also want to thread and make everything personal. I rewrote this on the fly. I'm not in writing mode, so it's not the best thing I've ever written, but it definitely serves my point. So here was what I rewrote. Hunger gnawed at Jane's inside as she led her way down the crowded street toward the side tunnel to the alley. The shortcut would lead to the restaurant she hoped her and her brother could find work at. Their coin was nearly gone, and she had no idea how she was going to feed her younger brother. Bryn trailed along behind her without a care in the world as she swerved through the throng of late-night shoppers and the cacophony of merchants vying for attention. The stench of sweat and city grime hit her nose, tainting the sweet, mouth-watering smell of fresh-baked bread. Her stomach rumbled. To take her mind off of it, she took in the sights and sounds of the markets. Colorful fabrics, bags, and leathers waved from awnings, while bins of spiced flowers and dried fish were stacked in crates. Or I'm sorry, she had stacked in crates lining the walls, and I changed it to blocked their path. So now we get that there's some motivation here. We get that she's hungry. She's worried about protecting and raising her younger brother. You get all sorts of subtext, like she's obviously, they have no parent, they have no guardians, they're street urchins or whatever. You don't know this for a fact, but there's a lot of subtext in here. And everything is so even like the change in the line of the original way she had written it was the stench of sweat and city grime tainted the sweet mouth-watering smell of fresh baked bread. But how does that affect the character? And so I just adding hit her nose in the middle of that. So now we know it's affecting her. And then the line that I added after that was her stomach rumble, which again was a call back to the beginning of hunger gnawing. Like now everything matters. Everything that's going on, you're a part of this moment. You get, now this has nothing to do with the story. Obviously, getting a job at the restaurant is not what the story's about. But in this opening scene, you already know so much about the characters that makes you want to connect to them.
Getting a job at the restaurant has got nothing to do with the story. But the fact that the character is broke establishes motivation, which pulls the reader through the scene. Now,
establishing that she's got a younger brother who's walking around like he doesn't have a care in the world while she's freaking out about trying to feed him gives us stakes. So not only do we know her motivation, we also get that there are stakes involved in that motivation.
So
just a couple extra words.
Exactly. But I like to say that there are 3 types of description in writers. You start out with bullet point descriptions. And what I mean by bullet point descriptions is she had medium length brown hair, brown eyes, and she was wearing jean pants. Something like that. It's basically just a litany of descriptions. The market was filled with stalls. It had leather and silks. There was the smell of spices in the air. You could hear merchants calling out. It's all just a list of descriptions. All right, that's phase 1. Then you move on from there and you get to what I call the pretty prose description, which is what she had originally. Okay, so it is better written. Yeah, it is still bullet points. It is still just a list of descriptions, but it is better written. It uses better senses. It doesn't filter. It's more showy. Like all of those technical elements are there. The third phase is when it stops being bullet points and it becomes an experience instead of a list of descriptions. So, and it becomes an experience when the character that the reader is interacting with experiences their environment, and they experience it by emotionally reacting to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just breaking it down. I wish you were there last night. You got to know your character's motivation. You got to know the stakes that they have. And again, it doesn't have to be the stakes of the actual story. It's what's important to them at that moment. And with all of that, that's when you start understanding how to affect the reader. Because now, like, the story has nothing to do with getting a restaurant. But even with just the crappy little extra editing that I did with this, now you're actually like, well, crap, I hope they get, I mean, I know they're not, because, everybody knows that everything's going to go wrong. Like, that's just stories. Like, you'll be shocked if they get there and it's like, yeah, actually, I could use a couple of extra hands. Why don't you go do this and you go do that? You'll be like, wait, what? Okay, then something worse. They're going to sell these children now. Like, you'll just go there. Because that's stories. Stories, nothing good happens to characters in stories. So they're not going to get this job. Or, you're pretty sure of that right out of the gate. But you're also like, man, I don't know how old she is, but obviously she's pretty young. Maybe she's only 12, 14 years old, and she's got this. I don't know how young her younger brother is, but obviously younger than her. So, like, what is he, 6, 8 years old? She's done a good enough job that he's walking behind her without a care in the world. At least that's the way she sees him. He could be freaking out back there. And I even said that because I was like, this is not head hopping, because we don't know that he actually has no care in the world. That's the way she sees him. But he could also not have a care in the world. That's fine. But the implications, the subtext behind that is that she's done a good enough job that he doesn't realize how dire their situation actually is, while she's freaking out about how dire their situation is. So now you're concerned, you're caught up, you're like, ooh, okay, how are they going to get out of this? What's going to happen to them next? Do they stay together? Are they going to be sold into slavery? Like, what is going to happen, for all of this? And it's like, what did I add? 15 words? I mean, it's not much.
Yeah, and you don't even have to make it as intense as they're hungry or whatever. Like, I recently wrote a forest scene where I'm just describing the forest a little bit, right? And I'm describing the scents and smells because it's from my blind character's perspective, which remains painful to write. Just if anybody was considering writing a blind character, I'm warning you now, it is more work than you think. And
still going to write an entire novel from a POV that is blind.
I have, because she's a major POV. She has a quarter of the book. Anyway.
But I mean the only POV character. The entire story being told blind. One of the things I want to do is, and I'm too busy right now, but I'd like to spend like 2 weeks with a blindfold on. Yeah. And literally just go through life the entire time, or maybe a month, and just not actually see anything ever, and see, because that is so foreign to somebody who has sight, what that actually is like. And so I'd like to live it before I start writing it. That I do want to write a story where you never, as the reader, you never get to see the world. At least with yours, it's multiple POVs. You get to see it through other characters' eyes and all of that. I want to write one that the reader never gets to see the world they're in.
Good luck.
Ever. Oh yeah, I know. It anyway. May never happen.
So, but I just, in order to just personalize a little bit, I was like, okay, she's busy meditating, and the scents and smells of the forest are distracting her from it. So every time she starts falling into a meditative contemplation, she's pulled out of it by the bird song, the this, that. And that just lets me make what is going on in the forest around. So you know that she's trying to meditate and that she's not getting into it, which means that she's troubled. And that's it.
Tension, very, very gentle tension, but it's still there, and conflict.
Yeah. And obviously, like that is very much beginning of book tension, like right at the start, it's gentler POV, etc., etc. So it depends on your POV, where you are in, and so on. But you have to take that description and make it personal to the reader and introduce some tension and conflict into that. Now, that still brings me back to too much plot has the same problem, or has a slightly different problem. So I'm reading another long-running book where the writer's actually pretty good, and she has connected me somewhat to the character, but she's now reached the middle portion of the book, and it's going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and every chapter is just packed with things that are happening. And I'm like, it's too fast. Too much is coming at me. I can't process. I need you to slow this stuff down and give me a second to actually absorb what's going on here, because you are losing tension by hitting me with too much information.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Sorry. I mean, I disagree. It's like, so pacing is a monster all of its own. Understanding that, you always want to ramp up tension. Tension gets more and more and more and more and more as we go, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the pace of the book increases. It's going to, obviously, some, but understanding, some people call it plateauing. I used to say, like, people say, well, you never plateau. I'm like, yeah, I never do, because I don't. I actually do not give them this, complete rest moment. But there are still times where they have time to recover from, so the tension is still there. We're still, in the thick of it, but we're not necessarily being attacked by the monster. Like, we just got attacked by the monster, we barely survived it, and now there has to be a moment, we can't just immediately be attacked by another monster and then immediately, barely survive that one and then immediately be attacked by a bigger monster. And like, that becomes draining. you have to, it's, and I said this last night too, you gave the action, but you didn't give the effect. So, the action of the monster attacking, but if they just go right into another monster attack or whatever, there's no effect of that first monster attack. I don't know how that impacted them. I don't know how they changed and grew from that. I don't know why, how they fared through that as far as other than just surviving. And that's when you get into just plot and you're just going, no, I got to move to the next scene. It's all about getting to that next moment. No, it's about the journey as well. It's about the growth. It's about that character dealing with the situation that they're in. Because again, if you've connected me to them, I need time to deal with what they just went through, because I went through that. And so if you just keep throwing stuff at me because you're just moving the plot, it's like, no, we have to fight the zombies, and then we have to fight the vampire, and we have to fight the lich after that, and then we fight the evil mage. So we're just gonna run through the room with zombies and kill them, and we're gonna run through the room with the vampire, and then the lich, and then we'll finally defeat the wizard, and we can go home. Like, okay, but how did any of this affect me? And so, sure, I moved the plot all the way to the end. We killed the evil wizard, but there's no connection there. There's no ramifications for my journey. And I especially think it's one of the reasons why I'm so hyper-focused on characters who have never killed before. Whether they're killing a monster or whether they're killing an evil human being or whatever. So many people in fantasy, it's just like, oh, I'm a farm boy, and oh, look, I just killed some bandits. Yay! Like, no, you murdered people. Like, sure, they were trying to kill you. Great. You were fighting for your life. You had no choice. But that still has a toll. You're supposed to be a hero. You're the good guy. You're the one with, trying to do the right thing. And now there's blood on your hands. And you never think about it. I mean, to go to the extreme, let's go to the beautifully done Wheel of Time television show, where Perrin murders his wife, cuts her in half with his own axe, and then never mentions it again. Like, whatever. Like, I was done with her anyway. I was going to file for divorce tomorrow. It's just easier that I chopped her in half now. Like, no, like, you can't, especially something that big, but just anything. And so many writers do that, where they just don't allow the character to be affected by the journey.
The one that I really hate, that writers sometimes don't allow characters to feel or process or be part of, is grief.
Mm-hmm.
Like an apparently beloved character dies. Somebody that they're supposed to care about for whatever reason. And I'm not even talking about the Wheel of Time, like example, like there are so many to choose from on this one. Your best friend died in the last book. You never mention his name again. You do not speak about how much you miss him. You don't think about him. It's like that person never existed. I'm like, okay. I was 12 when my grandmother died, and I still think about her occasionally. So
my grandmother actually raised me.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I mean, my mother was there as well, but she was a single mom and a businesswoman. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. And she died now about 12, 14 years ago. And we still have little memorial cards that we had passed out. I've got one in my office. I've got one downstairs there's a drawer that we keep our keys in and everything like that. So there's one inside of that. So almost every day I get to see a picture of her and kind of her obituary stuff, whatever. And it hurts every single time I see that. And I don't want it to not hurt. I want to remember how much she meant to me and how much she did for me in my life and how much I hate not having her here, because she didn't die. She died before she should have. She should have lasted another 20 years at least. Because my grandfather, who was in Vietnam and Korea and has been exposed to Agent Orange and, all this other crap, he's still alive and he's older than her. So like, she should not have had this. She had a botched heart surgery that was supposed to be a routine thing that she just never came out of. And like that's what readers want to experience. They want to, and again, I say this all the time, your job as a writer, or my job as a writer, and again, your job could be different, but this is the way I see it. Your job as a writer is to take your readers from the comfort and safety of wherever they're at, put them in a very uncomfortable, very unsafe situation, and make them deal with stuff they don't want to deal with, so that hopefully at the end of the journey, they become better people. Like, that's what we're doing. That's what storytelling, in my opinion, is all about. Everything else is just fluff. And so no one wants to deal with grief. Okay, great. You're going to deal with it because you don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to make you deal, but I'm going to let you do it through someone else by proxy. This other character is going to deal with this grief. And hopefully, because we all have things we grieve about. We all have things. You can't go through life. Like, if you're a multi-billionaire, you're going to suffer. Like, being human means suffering. Now, they have a lot more money. Maybe they suffer less. I don't know. I'm not a multi-billionaire. I don't know what that would be like. But I guarantee you, I know a lot of very, very, very wealthy people that I actually pity. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I am so happy I don't have your life. I want your money, but I definitely don't want your life, because you have had a horrible crap life. And we don't like thinking about that. But again, if you feel your job is to do storytelling the way, I feel that my job is to do storytelling, then that's what we want them. We want them to suffer through that grieving period. Because I think they want it too. I really do. Not all readers, but as a reader, that's what I want. I want to experience something from the safety and comfort of my house that is very unsafe and very uncomfortable, that I know that at any time I'm not in real danger. I've been sucked into this and I feel like I'm a part of this, but I know at any time I can put this book down.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you don't go into that, I think you're doing your audience a service. Same thing with the pain of taking a life for the first time. Like, that is something that is not easy to do for anybody, unless you're a psychopath. I mean, if you're an absolute psychopath, then you're probably not a good hero.
So
Like,
I mean, it depends on your hero. Like, my go-to example is always Louis. Louis does not care. Louis will if he feels that your throat should be slit, then your throat is slit, and he will move on without even thinking twice about it.
Yeah. But was he that way?
He was that way when you met him. Like,
I know that, but he had been assassin for a while in
the
Hidden Blade.
No. He wasn't made that way. He wasn't born that way. But he was 14 years old when he killed his first man.
How did that affect?
At his mother's instruction. It, of course, affected him a great deal at 14. But you meet him at 26 when he's
But that still makes my point.
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about the first time not the first time he kills in front of the reader.
Yes.
The first time he kills.
Yes.
That is not something that is easy. Sure, he's killed dozens, if not hundreds of people by the time we meet him. So it's just rote. It's just, he's lost that part of his humanity. He doesn't see his victims as living, breathing humans that have loves and passions and, desires, and people who care about them and people they care about. He didn't see any of that. He just sees something that just needs to be done.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't want to.
It's like a checklist. He goes, I need to pick up laundry, make dinner, kill this person.
Right. And that's the way it reads.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it's just, there's so many people, just going back to what you're saying, there's so many things that writers shy away from. And I think it's because they don't want to deal with it. And I say this all the time too. Being a writer is about exposing your soul. Mm. That's why it hurts so bad when somebody doesn't like what you do, because you just exposed your soul to them. And it's tough. And I get it, but that's a part of being an artist. That is the plight that we accept. When we are artists, we are exposing our souls, and it's a subjective industry. And so some people are gonna be like, oh, that's so amazing. And other people are like, meh. You ever thought about picking up cans for a living? Because you can make money doing that. So it's rough to hear that. I promise you. So yeah, but this is where our readers want to be taken, whether they admit it or not. That is what they want
And
for the
just
most part.
and just to circle this back to tension, because I think we're almost getting to the time on this podcast. So just to circle this back to tension, that character interaction, that grief, that emotion, that investment in things that have happened to them, in their reaction to killing for the first time and all of that, those are things that create character tension. And what you need to do is you need to layer that character tension into your plot tension to have both of them carrying a scene. So when you're planning the scene, by all means, just bullet point down what the scene needs to achieve, what information it needs to give the reader, and, you know, all of that stuff. But then go through that outline again. And this time, put in what is the character's tension? What is the character's feeling about the scene? And that will help you to figure out at least what you're trying to communicate, even if you can't, even if you struggle with the technical skill of communicating.
I've said this before, but let me repeat it again. Because this actually is probably this was the pinnacle of my learning that changed my writing forever. And I think it's where I went from being an okay storyteller to being one that people wanted to read. And that's when because I'm not an actor, but I was studying acting and all of that. And so I started going down the rabbit hole of taking a class on method acting. And method acting is where you actually become the character and you totally buy into everything. So there's some exercises that you do, and, you know, you really stop being yourself and you become them. And, you know, it makes for some amazing performances, like the Joker from the guy who's dead now.
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. So
or Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
Yeah.
Or Face Off with John Travolta. I mean, John Travolta's a big method actor. So they actually become these characters, and the performance that they put on because of that is off the charts. And so when I learned that, I was like, well, I mean, when I'm writing, I'm just acting. It's just that I'm acting everybody and the world and everything. And so now I do that's why I said there's a difference in me in writing mode versus when I'm in editing mode. Because when I'm in editing mode, I'm all right brain. It's all logic. You know, I'm just going through and adding stuff and changing stuff and correcting stuff. But when I'm in stream of conscious mode, I actually have a 3 to 5 minute ritual that I do before I start writing. And it is the exact exercises, the mental exercises that method actors do. I become the narrating character. I am no longer Drake. I am, you know, Alith. I know what her motivations are. I know what her desires are. I know what she's trying to accomplish. But I take it a step further because I'm also the world. And so I'm every other character in the scene. I know what they're trying to do. I know what the story is trying to do. So if we just look at the base of theme, that I know that Alith is trying to stay on the wrong side of the theme and what that is. And the story is trying to convince her that she's on the wrong side of the theme to move to the right side of the theme and what that is. And so it's a little bit more in depth than just a method actor that's just going to play one character that somebody else wrote the lines for. So, you know, they don't have to do anything but deliver that one thing. So obviously being a novelist is way more complex than just being a method actor for one character in this one moment, because you're everything. But I still go through the same process. And so when I start writing, I'm no longer me. Like, I am the character, and I do feel, and that's why it's so easy for me to be like, if I was writing like that little example that I did, that hunger never leaves me because I'm freaking starving at that moment. Like, I am no longer, I may have just eaten lunch as Drake, but once I drop into this character, I'm starving. And it's going to be on my mind all the time. So as I'm describing things, like when it goes to the stench of sweat and city grime, tainting the sweet this, I'm going to be like, and that's going to make my stomach growl because I'm hungry. I want food. Like, so it's easy to stay into that mode when you become the character. It may not work for you, but I do give that advice to everybody. Do some research on what method acting is. Do some research on how to go through the mental exercises. It might help you. It massively helped me. Like, it is how I become my characters when I'm writing. So just a little last piece of tidbit advice because it would help you on the character tension side. The plot tension is more right brain, but on the character
plot
tension side,
is about plotting your book. It's about knowing where it's going, knowing where the story's going, and knowing how to distribute the information to the reader.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from.
And where your hook moments are, and where your left turns are, and where your gut dropping, bad things are. I'm a writer. Should come up with better words. But yeah, but the character, I think, is more emotional, and it's more left brain. It's more, all of the heart and soul. And again, without either of them, I mean, if you just have character tension, then it's hollow. Like, okay, this character is fighting this moment of their life, and then this moment of their life, and then this but where's it going? Because that's basically our lives. Like, we live that way. Right. Like, in our lives, there's no real plot. We just are fighting this moment to survive to the next moment.
So I will grant you that there is a genre you can write that in. I read a bunch of Mills and Boone books at one point in my life for some reason, and they absolutely have no plot. They also have no plot tension.
Yeah.
But that is a genre written for predominantly women to consume and forget for the sake of entertainment.
It is definitely not sci-fi fantasy.
No.
The sci-fi fantasy fans want a story. Yeah. They want a lesson. They want to see change and growth. And they want to be able to transplant that or juxtaposition that in their own lives. Like, that is, sci-fi fantasy fans are cut above. We're not, that's why we are what we are. That's why most of us are geeks and nerds, and we were the smartest, students in the classes. Not always. I mean, you can be a geek and be an idiot. I mean, I am an idiot, so I'm, definitely an exception to that rule. But a lot of geeks and nerds are the smarter people. They want more. They want to, and also maybe it's because I didn't think about this just now, but maybe, you always hear the trope that geeks and nerds are less connected with the human equation. So that might be another reason why they're attracted to this. And again, this comes down to motivations of readers and understanding. It is so important to understand a reader's motivation and why they're there, because that's what you need to deliver. That's our job, is to deliver what they're looking for. Even that's why I call them unknown expectations, because they don't really think about this stuff. I mean, hell, I didn't think about that to just this second. Like, wow, maybe it's because they're a little socially awkward and they need that, unconsciously they're looking for that. So yeah, that's just a piece of advice. It may work for you, it may not, but it definitely works for me.
And I think that is a good note on which to end this podcast. And we will see you soon for another one.
Bye.